Does XDefiant live up to all the hype? Is it the next COD Killer? Well, I'm going to kind of give you my opinion on the game. Now keep in mind, this isn't necessarily my style of game. I do play a lot of FPS games, and I did grow up playing a lot of competitive Call of Duty, even being sponsored for a short period. I definitely have dove into the universe of Call of Duty for a lot of my life. However, I've sort of grown past that, and I do like more complex, very objective focused kind of games, or even S&D stuff. Maybe something in terms of like Valorant, and especially the finals, which I feel like is a nice blend between objective and the run and gun ADHD. That fine line, I think, is sort of where I sit in terms of what I prefer. Now, when I played the initial launch, I have to say the netcode still feels pretty bad. I will say it does feel better than what it did in the beta, but there was plenty of times where I felt like I was dying behind walls and things just felt like they were a bit delayed. I also had some performance issues initially, but I was able to fix that, and I will say the game actually does run pretty well. As you can see here, I'm getting an average of about 300 FPS, and I am capped at 300 FPS, so that's probably why. So I am pretty impressed with the performance that they were able to get out of this game. And other than that, I want to talk about sort of the unfortunate habit that I've seen a lot of people do where they just kind of copy games. And this obviously is a COD clone. I mean, we all know that it is a COD clone. Nobody's really kind of arguing that. But did they really improve on the formula? Did they do something different? And in my honest opinion, no. They've kind of done the exact same formula. It is made by somebody who originally had developed one of the older Call of Duties, so of course that shouldn't be a surprise. And there is nothing wrong with copying a game, especially when it's an IP that you kind of helped pioneer. However, when it comes to my experience, I have to say when it comes to Call of Duty games, Call of Duty just kind of does Call of Duty the best because it's their IP, right? And this is not the Call of Duty servers, this is Ubisoft, so you definitely have some of that Ubisoft sort of jank and a little bit of stiffness that I don't think really complements the Call of Duty fast-paced action. The bullet registration feels okay. There's definitely a lot of times where I would say I'm not really too happy with it. I wasn't really too pleased with the overall experience of it, but it isn't bad. I would say it's better than average, but I would expect more from something that is trying to copy Call of Duty, as you would either want to imitate it correctly or improve on it. Now, when it comes to the game modes and gameplay in general, you're also getting that Call of Duty experience where everything is just spawning really quickly. It's just everything is right up in your face. There's often times where it is strategically better to simply die so that you spawn closer to the objective rather than being far away from it. They did have a preview, a sort of trial run for how ranked was supposed to be, and in a lot of these games they were basically hot joinable, which if that's an example of how ranked is supposed to be, I'm not too happy with that. And then on top of that, obviously the spawns were so quick that again, a lot of the tactics of dying to spawn closer was definitely a thing, and I don't think I'm a fan of that. I also didn't see any search and destroy game mode, which is definitely my preferred game mode. I don't like the quick ADHD, things are always happening, things are always spawning. I like a little bit of a slower paced game, you know, potentially more of a thinking man's game, if you will, even though I don't necessarily think that there is a version where it is like an intelligence chess-based game. Realistically, we're just kind of here to have fun and shoot people, which I will say XDefiant definitely delivers on. There's also a lot of customization. However, I feel like there's already what feels like a meta in terms of what the best factions are, what the best abilities are, and then what the best weapons are. It kind of feels like the same old trope that most Call of Duties have, where they try to make everything kind of the same. There's no uniqueness, there's not much of a variety in between the weapons. Every weapon kind of feels the same. Realistically, you're just looking for what is the best on paper, what gives you the fastest TTK, and then you just kind of kit it out in order to have more mobility or a faster TTK, and then you're kind of good. That's where you leave it at. And that's been basically the exact same pattern that we've seen from every single Call of Duty, I think, in history, where they just find the best weapons, typically the best AR, the best SMG, and then those become the meta picks that everybody uses across the board. But at first glance, you might think that there is variety, but I think we're going to end up in that exact same issue of balancing. And I genuinely do hope that this is sort of scratching that itch that I think a lot of players are looking for when it comes to a Call of Duty. I'm a big fan of the fact that they have removed kill streaks, and it is simply just a arcade shooter where there aren't any like gimmicks when it comes to the kill streaks that you would often find in Call of Duty, because I think those were kind of my least favorite aspect of the game. Another thing that I think is going to be really important for anybody who is interested in picking up XDefiant is how is the aim assist handled? The aim assist in XDefiant is pretty strong. If you're using a controller, you 100% have an advantage over the mouse and keyboard players, and it is very apparent, especially in the very quick, jerky motions that you can kind of do. If you do have the aim assist, you'll be able to stay locked on. However, if you are on M&K, you are going to struggle, and you'll definitely feel it in terms of people killing you in situations that you feel you might have had the advantage initially, but the aim assist just sort of won out. This is to be expected when it comes to a Call of Duty game, as pretty much all Call of Duties tend to favor the controller over the M&K. So my guess, like most Call of Duty games, it's going to die out within a couple weeks when it comes to the PC mouse and keyboard players. Obviously, there's still going to be tons of players that play it because it's going to be a popular IP, but I'm sure a lot of people that have the initial hype of playing it on M&K will eventually die out, and they'll kind of go back to the old games that they're playing or find a new game, as the frustration of the misbalance can definitely kind of cause issues. But there's tons of casual players and people who play on console who are going to love this. I think it's a really tricky thing to do because there's tons of games where there isn't enough aim assist, and it completely kills the potential of all the players who play on controller. And finding that balance is always going to be hard. But I think when you look at the numbers that you get from certain games, having stronger aim assist so that the controller players have a bit of an advantage does tend to lead to bigger numbers, so I can't blame them for kind of catering to that. There are a few games like Valorant and CSGO that don't really give any aim assist, and you'll just see a very mouse and keyboard dominated game, or even not even having controller access at all. At the end of the day, it is up to you to decide if this is going to be the right game for you. Like I said before, this just doesn't really kind of meet the criteria for what I look for in a good FPS. I also have played so many Call of Duties in the past that I don't think this is going to do enough to really drive my attention towards the game. I did enjoy a little bit of the game. It's a very nice sort of aim trainer, I would say, but it's probably not going to be a staple. And for anybody that kind of watches my content, you can probably expect to see very little XDefiant, if any, XDefiant videos in the future. I thought I'd just sort of share my opinion on the initial launch here. Feel free to leave your comments below on how you feel about the game. I'm really hoping a lot of people are having a more positive experience than I did, because obviously it can be a little bit upsetting to pick up a new game and not enjoy it. So I'm really hoping everybody is having a blast on it. That being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.